The divine blessing ceremony began with high hopes for the Ryan family. Instead of a blessing, the fire god's sword burned to ash in Lucas's hands. Everyone watched in horror as the young boy collapsed, seemingly rejected by the gods. At that very moment, a soul from another world found its way into his broken body. Lucas woke up with a new purpose and a secret blessing from the martial god. Over the next 9 years, he lived 2 lives colliding in one mind. He began a bold plan to train in secret away from prying eyes. Beneath his room, he dug a hidden sanctuary for his martial arts practice. The basement was divided into areas for study, storage, and intense training. He spent every night soaking in medicinal baths to strengthen his core. By the age of 15, his physical defense had become as hard as steel. He studied the chaos tempering arts to sharpen his senses and combat skills. A bully named Jeremy tried to ambush him with magical vines. Lucas remained unmoved, his secret defense easily absorbing the magical pressure. Julia arrived just in time, her purple lightning scattering the vines. She vowed to always protect her brother from those who looked down on him. Lucas smiled, knowing his true strength remained a secret between them. He practiced his spear techniques until the air itself seemed to crack. With a single punch, he tore apart a heavy sack of sand. His father returned home with news of a new martial arts department at the academy. Lucas prepared for the entrance exam, ready to show the world his path. He received a lucky coin depicting the first Emperor Mars. The journey to the academy began with a long carriage ride through the forest. Suddenly, Lucas sensed a group of bandits approaching at high speed. Bandits swarmed the carriage, targeting the noble children. Lucas used pebbles as deadly projectiles to take down the attackers silently. The bandit leader fired a massive fireball at their protector. Lucas canceled the magic with a single blow to the leader's chest. A dark creature emerged from the fallen bandit's remains. Lucas charged at the beast, his eyes focused on its weak point. He imbued himself with explosive chi before delivering a final strike. After the battle, he rescued a young noble girl named Maya. Julia comforted the girl while Lucas kept watch for more threats. Lucas realized a demon might be controlling the bandits from the shadows. The next day, they finally arrived at the gates of Daktown. Julia was amazed by the beauty and liveliness of the gourmet town. Lucas bought her everything she wanted to lift her spirits. They reached the academy gates, ready for the trials ahead. Lucas vowed to stay in the shadows to avoid attracting trouble. Far away, a demon lord began to stir as her power returned. The morning sun rose over the towering spires of Allen Magic Academy as Lucas adjusted his new uniform. Julia bounced on her heels beside him, her purple hair shimmering with latent magical energy. Lucas felt the heavy weight of the suppression seals he had placed on his own mana veins to hide his true power. They walked through the massive iron gates of the academy, where thousands of elite students gathered. Every student around them carried a staff or wore expensive magical catalysts on their wrists. A group of noble students sneered as they noticed the Ryan family crest on Lucas's chest. They whispered loudly about the boy who was born without a single drop of offensive magic. Lucas ignored the insults, his mind focused on the rhythmic breathing of a master martial artist. Julia glared at the bullies, her hand instinctively reaching for the wand at her waist. Lucas placed a steady hand on her shoulder to signal that she should let it go. The opening ceremony began in the Great Hall, a chamber illuminated by floating spheres of light. Headmaster Alaric stood at the podium, his long white beard trailing down to his belt. He announced that only the strongest mages would survive the upcoming trials of the semester. When Lucas was called to the stage for the mana aptitude test, the room fell into a mocking silence. He placed his palm on the crystal, carefully suppressing his internal energy to the lowest possible level. The crystal flickered with a pathetic dim gray light that barely illuminated his fingertips. Laughter erupted from the upperclassmen's seats as they pointed at the mana-less boy. Lucas smiled inwardly, knowing that his physical strength could shatter that crystal into dust. Next, Julia stepped up and the crystal exploded into a blinding pillar of violet light. The professors leaned forward in their chairs, realizing they had found a rare genius. Lucas watched his sister with pride, glad that she would finally get the recognition she deserved. However, the fame of his sister only made the mages hate the talentless brother even more. During the first combat class, the instructor paired Lucas against the strongest student in the freshman year. His opponent, a noble named Marcus, summoned a flaming sword with a flick of his wrist. Marcus taunted Lucas, promising to send him home in a coffin before the day ended. Lucas took a simple stance, his feet firmly planted in the dirt like the roots of a mountain. Marcus lunged forward, swinging the flaming blade in a wide, destructive arc. With a movement too fast for the human eye to follow, Lucas stepped inside the guard of the flame. He delivered a precise strike to Marcus's solar plexus, using only 5% of his true power. Marcus gasped as the air left his lungs, his flaming sword flickering out instantly. The entire class stared in disbelief as the top-ranked mage fell to a single unarmed blow. The instructor narrowed his eyes, wondering how a boy with no mana could move with such speed. Lucas simply bowed and walked back to the group as if nothing significant had happened. Julia pulled him aside later, fearing that he was drawing too much attention to his hidden skills. Lucas told her that he would only do what was necessary to keep them safe in this den of mages. That night, a dark figure watched them from the roof of the library, clutching a forbidden scroll. The figure belonged to the Ebon Circle, a cult that sought to harvest the souls of young geniuses. In the girls' dormitory, Julia suddenly felt a cold chill run down her spine as the lights flickered. A thick magical fog began to seep through the cracks of her door, smelling of decay. Lucas, sensing the disturbance through his heightened instincts, sprinted toward the female dorms. He didn't use the stairs, instead leaping from balcony to balcony with impossible strength. He reached Julia's floor just as a group of masked mages surrounded her room. The cultists raised their staves, preparing to cast a silencing spell on the entire floor. Lucas's eyes glowed with a faint golden light as he prepared to reveal a fraction of his godlike power. But just as he stepped forward, the floor beneath him turned into a gaping void of shadow. Lucas plummeted through the endless void as the shadows of the trap coiled around his limbs like freezing chains. He took a deep breath and centered his internal energy, shattering the magical bindings with a single flex of his muscles. With a powerful thrust of his palm, Lucas tore a hole back into reality and stepped onto the blood-stained festival grounds. The school-wide festival had transformed into a scene of carnage as demonic portals opened across the sky. Julia stood at the center of the plaza, her purple lightning flickering weakly against a horde of creeping shadows. A massive abyssal demon loomed over her, raising a clawed hand to deliver a finishing blow. In a blur of golden light faster than any teleportation spell, Lucas appeared directly in front of his sister. He caught the demon's massive claw with his bare hand, the shockwave of the impact cracking the stone beneath his feet. The mages watching from the balconies gasped as they witnessed a supposedly magicless boy stopping a high-tier demon. Lucas looked the demon in its central eye and told it that its existence ended today. He delivered a straight punch into the monster's chest, releasing the full force of his 9 years of secret training. The abyssal demon disintegrated into 1,000 shards of darkness before it could even let out a scream. Lucas didn't stop there, leaping hundreds of feet into the air to engage the remaining airborne threats. He moved like a golden comet, striking down dozens of gargoyles with lightning-fast strikes. Below him, Julia found her second wind and began coordinating the student mages to provide support fire. For the first time in history, the refined spells of mages and the raw power of a martial artist worked in perfect harmony. The headmaster watched from the spire, realizing that the academy's prejudice had nearly cost them their lives. Lucas landed in the center of the largest rift, preparing to close the gateway to the demon realm forever. He poured every ounce of his martial god blessing into his legs, preparing for a world-shaking final technique. With a roar that echoed across the kingdom, he stomped the ground, sending a shockwave of holy energy into the rift. The portals collapsed instantly, and the demonic energy evaporated into harmless mist. Lucas stood among the rubble, his golden aura fading as his body finally felt the toll of the battle. Julia ran toward him and threw her arms around him, weeping with relief that her brother was safe. One by one, the other students stepped forward and bowed to the boy they had once mocked. The headmaster descended and publicly declared that martial arts would henceforth be taught alongside magic. News of the martial gods' return spread throughout the land, igniting a new era of equality. Lucas returned home to his family, finding his parents waiting with a feast to celebrate his victory. He looked at the portrait of the martial god on the wall and whispered a silent thank you for the second chance. Years passed and the Allen Academy was renamed the Academy of Harmonious Arts. Lucas became the first Grand Master of the martial department, training a new generation of warriors. Julia became the youngest High Mage in history, often visiting her brother's classes to demonstrate combined tactics. They often sat on the same hill where they used to play as children, watching the sunset together. The world was no longer a place where one's worth was determined solely by the mana in their veins. Lucas knew that his journey from a tragic death to a godlike rebirth was finally complete. Even if new threats emerged from the shadows, he was ready to face them with his fists and his heart. He promised Julia that he would always be there to protect her, no matter what world they were in. The legacy of the Ryan family was no longer one of shame but one of eternal strength and courage. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, a golden light shimmered briefly across the entire horizon. Lucas Ryan closed his eyes, content with the life he had built and the destiny he had conquered. The martial god had truly risen, and his story would be told for generations to come.